Hello, everyone, and welcome back to NieR Replicant. My name is Tom, otherwise known as Titanium Legman, and I hope that my AC isn't too loud in the background right now where there's no background noise or music. It's very hot today, and I had to leave it running. We are back, and we are ready to hopefully... Whoop, no, don't do this to me, game. We're back and ready to hopefully get some more answers in, I guess, Route B? At least the route that leads to ending B, presumably, of NieR Replicant here. And I guess Kaine's story, from what the game said, it seemed to be implying that that's what we'd be experiencing. So we're going to get into it here. We're going to see what happens. So, let's begin. I didn't want to load it up and have it just jump right into things because I didn't know exactly what was going to happen. So, we'll see. We will bear the weight of the loading screen. Oh.
Whenever I interacted with Kaine, I was reminded about something from my past. Maybe my mind has been confusing her with my sister this whole time. Anyway...
Is that different dialogue? I don't know. Again, my memory's garbage, so I might just not remember. But that, I feel like that's different dialogue. Cool that we're picking up post time skip here, though. Kaine's dreams discrimination. Oh, okay. Oh, we're reading. Okay. The sound of rain filled the village. The steep cliffs that surrounded the area magnified sound, causing even the slightest drizzle to rattle like a thunderstorm. Hello? Game? There we go. Apparently my controller turned off. Thin wisps of smoke streamed from huts as the villagers huddled in their homes and waited out the rain. A single child, however, had braved the downpour and was now wandering slowly toward the wooden, hawk-shaped weather vane at the center of town. The wanderer reached the vane, which had existed for as long as any could remember, and stared. The child's face was simultaneously delicate and fierce, like a teacup that had survived a shipwreck. Is this Kaine? Sounds like Kaine. Those traits combined with pale white skin to give the face an almost sexless quality. Interesting. No longer sounds like Kaine. Kaine, I would say, yes, has a fierce but feminine face. If the beak turns east, I go home. If it stays west, then I... The child blinked. Rain slowly dripped down the young one's short hair and began its long descent to the ground. Short hair? Again, sounds like Kaine. Come on. Come on! The child felt a slight breeze and watched as the vane slowly creaked to life. Spinning this way and that for a moment, it finally settled with the beak pointing firmly toward the east. East? Really? Before the vane could move again, a jagged rock came spinning and tumbling through the air, striking home against the child's head. The force of the blow dropped the child to the ground as a hail of stones began to fall all around. Oh no, they found me. A heartbreaking smile crept across the child's face as the stones continued their assault. Through the rain, the sound of multiple footsteps grew louder before a voice rang out. Oh, it is. Interesting that they would describe Kaine's face as sexless. Maybe just because they're young and like they haven't developed into like I say they, as if it's not Kaine, but, you know, I guess, yeah, you would describe all children's faces as kind of just, like, genderless, sexless, kind of lumpy. You know, the baby fat and everything. You, Kaine! The voice belonged to Demo, worst of all the bullies in the area. Okay, so she did grow up in the area. Gotcha. As Kaine struggled to stand, a final stone came skittering through the mud and bounced against her foot. Blood oozed from a cut above her eye and blurred her vision, but she could make out the shapes of Demo and his usual gang of idiots. Yeah, well, no wonder that she's the hardened person that she is if this is the shit she's been dealing with ever since she was a kid. The boy seemed taken aback for a moment by Kaine's seeming indifference to the blood dripping from her face, but quickly regained his bravado. "What's up, freak? You like the rain? You like getting all wet? Or did you finally decide to run away from home?" Though she knew it was futile, Kaine turned to leave. Before she could get more than a few steps, the other children scrambled to surround her, cruelty burning in their eyes. Kaine knew those were not the only eyes on her. The tormentor's parents watched from the safety of their homes. She was attuned to this sensation. It was one she had experienced many times before. While some villagers simply turned a blind eye to the actions of their children, many encouraged it openly. In a society ruled by superstition and fear, Kaine was something to be hated, and if possible, destroyed. "I didn't say you could leave, freak." Demo's words chewed at her like a worm through an apple. "He can't hurt me," she lied to herself. "Be strong. Be brave. He can't hurt me. He can't hurt me. He can't hurt..." "Oh, look, the little freak's gonna cry. What's wrong? Are you sad that everyone hates you and wants you dead?" Kaine prayed for the rain to flood down and carry her away from a world that seemed to have no place for her. What's up with the area? Like, why are people like this here? People in the area have been weird long before the whole, like, people are turning into shades. "Oh, no, it's my sister. Don't hurt her. She's a shade. Yada, yada, yada." Like, long before all that happened, the area has been weird. And, like, clearly, it's been weird even long before we ever went there, if this is when she's a kid. But if there were gods, they chose to ignore her. As Demo crept ever closer, the clouds began to thin, and the rain slowed. "Even the weather hates me. I'm useless. A failure." Well, either this is what Kaine's internal dialogue is always like, or we're going to see her go through some major character development to turn her into the badass that she is today. One or the other. Possibly both, even. "I wish Demo's rock had taken my head off." Kaine couldn't meet Demo's leering gaze. She lowered her eyes and stared at the muddy ground below. The bully moved forward until he was inches away. She could smell the scent of old meat on it. What? Of old meat on his breath. What? Boy needs to brush his teeth. The boy grabbed Kaine's face with thick fingers and yanked it upward. She tried to turn away, but he forced her gaze back and jammed his thumb against her eyelid to pry it up. What the heck? Ugh. Alright, let me finish properly reading that sentence. She tried to turn away, but he forced her gaze back and jammed his thumb against her eyelid to pry it open. "Show me." "No." "Did you just say no?" Demo grinned evilly. "You don't say no to me. No one says no to me." Not even taking his attention from Kaine, he called to his cohorts. Come on, guys! Let's give the freak what she deserves. As soon as Demo finished, kicks and blows began to rain down upon Kaine. Demo paused, still grinning, as Kaine curled into a ball and tried to make the pain stop. I don't get you, freak. What you acting like a girl for, huh? Everyone knows what you really are. Kaine ignored the question, choosing instead to stare at the weather vane. It continued to point east, as if supremely confident about the future it had chosen for her. Go home? Yeah, that's a funny joke for someone with dead parents and no home to go to. Freak! Chanted the children. Freak! 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 Kaine closed her eyes and listened to the rain, waiting for the pain to start again. And, like, this is something even as an adult, I say adult because, like, clearly Kaine was a fully grown human being when we were still, I guess, a kid, a preteen, a young teenager maybe, as NieR. And she doesn't appear to have aged at all in the time skip, so I imagine she's definitely older than we are by a decent margin. And people still called her a freak then, so I don't know, man. Very curious. As the clutching hands of the village children closed around her, she bent her mind to the sound of the rain, letting it become her world entire. The rain fell, but the pain never came. Only when the laughter of her tormentors turned to terrified cries did she dare open a single, blood-caked eye. Kaine was shocked to see Dino sprawled on the ground, holding his head and screaming in pain. Interesting. She could see blood welling from spaces between his fat, twisted fingers. Oh my god, he's crying. He's actually crying! Deprived of their leader, the other children glanced back and forth between themselves, as if waiting for someone to step forward and take charge. When no savior emerged, they began an uneasy shuffle away from Kaine. Is this where we see, like, her shade powers manifest or something? Because we still don't know anything about that. But the young girl was the least of their concerns. Ooh, music change. Ooh! Instead, their attention was wrapped on the ancient woman standing a few feet away. After struggling for breath for a moment, she finally spoke in a voice thick with rage. Hurts like a bitch, don't it? Now I suggest you scatter before I throw another one. And if any of you little bastards ever touch my Kaine again, I'll do far worse than throw a rock. You can count on it! This must be Grandma, huh? The old woman crouched down and gently touched the hand Demo was using to cover the wound. Before he could think to protest, she ground her palm into the wound and twisted back and forth. Ow! He screamed, leaping to his feet. Stop it! What are you doing? Quit whining! Ain't no one ever died from a scratch. You hit me with a rock, you stupid bitch! A big one! That thing could have killed me! The old woman shrugged. Death is the best cure for stupid. Dino's face twisted with rage at her words. Locking his eyes on Kaine, he took a step backward and spat on the ground. Get out! Leave this village. No one wants you here, either of you. Seeing the old woman grab another stone, Demo and his companions turned tail and ran. As they fled, the old woman grabbed her side and barked out a single laugh. Ha! Look at the fat boy go! Guess he's healthy enough to run from a fight. The woman's smile faded as she turned her attention to Kaine. Kneeling down, she removed her shawl and placed it around the young girl's shoulders, then produced a cloth from the folds of her dress and began blotting at the blood on her forehead. Interesting. Okay, so they said... Oh, one moment. I have a phone call. Anyway, back to the plot. The woman's smile faded as she turned her attention to Kaine. Kneeling down, she removed her shawl and placed it around the young girl's shoulders, then produced a cloth from the folds of her dress and began blotting at the blood on her forehead. And I remember what I was going to say before I got on the phone was, it's interesting. Demo says something along the lines of like, you pretend, like you act like a girl or something, but we know what you really are. And like, is that an indication of her like being part shade? Is there supposed to be some sort of indication here of her being something more quote unquote like mundane or real world, like trans or something? Because we also had a reference to her face being sexless, but then she's referred to as she by the narrative, and all the characters refer to her as she, and she definitely has like a clearly feminine figure. So I don't know. I only bring it up because we also had the very obviously like Emil is probably gay or at the very least bi thing before. So I don't know. Perhaps we'll see. "Oh, Kaine," she said. "Why didn't you fight back? You're stronger than that lot." The words of her grandmother stung Kaine, and she turned away. "Don't be nice to me," she said. "I don't deserve it. Nothing matters anymore." Her tears, held in check for so long, finally began to fall on the muddy ground below. "Everyone hates me. They think I cause bad things to happen. They think I'm a freak. I wish I was dead." As Kaine's tears turned to sobs, she felt her grandmother's hands on her shoulders. Despite her advanced age and diminutive size, she was a woman of surprising strength, and Kaine found herself unable to turn away. "Don't talk like that, girl. It's a river wide and deep that flows between the realms of this world and the next, and it grants no mercy to any that attempt the crossing. You got a duty to fight until your last breath. Understand?" The old woman tightened her grip and tried to still the tremor in her voice. "You know the pain of losing someone close to you, Kaine. You know because you survived it." As the words hit home, Kaine was struck by the force of her love for the old woman. As a young child, she didn't even know of her grandmother, but when her parents died, the woman quickly accepted her as her own. So she talks about how she has no home and no family to go back to, but then she has a grandmother who loves her and who she loves? There's a confusing bit of dialogue before then. Grandma, as Kaine called her, was cunning, vulgar, and quick to violence, and their first few years together had not been easy. But with each year that passed, Kaine and her grandmother had grown closer. However, it was only now, sitting in the mud, with tears and blood caking her face, that Kaine truly understood the depths of her affection. Okay, well there we go, that makes sense then. Here was a woman who had seen hard times, who had seen death, who had fought through all of these things, and somehow emerged on the other side. If anyone could understand Kaine's pain and loneliness, it was her. "Do I make you sick, Grandma?" "Course not! Don't be an ass!" We know where Kaine got her foul mouth from, huh? Kaine drew her grandmother's moth-eaten shawl around her body and shuddered. "But my body, it's not normal. If I was normal, then Mom and Dad wouldn't..." "Hush!" interrupted Grandma. "I'll not hear another word of this nonsense. You're my granddaughter, and I love you. And if folks have a problem with that, they can just go to hell." With that, the old woman reached out and placed a wreath of dried flowers in Kaine's hair. The skill it took to bend the flowers without breaking the stems or losing a single petal was remarkable, and the beauty of it made Kaine want to cry all over again. I can definitely see some symbolism in that, right? Like, we've talked about how Kaine's grandmother has this incredible strength, and she's this rough, vulgar woman, and yet she's raising Kaine with skill and care, you know, bending her and shaping her into a woman who can stand on her own, drawing out the strength in her without breaking her, without losing a single petal. That's nice. I like that a lot. Oh my gosh. These are lunar tears. Grandma, you made this for me? Lunar tears were legendary flowers. Most people could live their entire lives without ever seeing one. And yet her grandmother had somehow collected a dozen or more. Kaine reached up and touched the wreath as if she couldn't believe it was real. Where did you find these? Just stumbled on them while I was out doing the shopping. The old woman turned away as she spoke, leading Kaine to suspect that the search had been more difficult than she was letting on. The pains she took to construct the ornament, let alone track down the flowers used in its construction, made Kaine's heart hurt. She reached up and gently adjusted the wreath, admiring the way it felt between her fingers. Didn't quite turn out right, said her grandmother as she squinted at it. These old hands have trouble with delicate work, but it sure looks good on a pretty girl like you. Kaine blushed and turned away. You think I'm pretty? Course you are! What a fool thing to say. Thank you, Grandma. Her grandmother smiled. We're gonna be fine, you and me, she said. Long as we got each other, we'll be just fine. We can see why Kaine took such offense to the shade, like, mimicking her grandmother. Like, the giant, like, monster shade that attacked the area. Unless it really was her grandmother, which would be tragic, and may just wind up being the case. We'll have to see. Kaine took her grandmother's hand in hers, and the two of them struggled to their feet. As they began the long walk home, Kaine gripped the hand with all her might, as if trying to stop smoke from drifting away on the wind. The rain had stopped. Kaine stood beneath the weather vane, watching it spin in lazy circles, no longer caring about the direction it faced when it stopped. I don't need to escape. I have a home now. Grandma loves me, and that's enough. Even if it's us against the world. Kaine let her gaze drift up past the vane and into the cloudy sky. The last faint hints of a rainbow were slowly fading. As she turned and headed for home, the light scattered into a million particles and vanished, seemingly taken away on the breeze. Kaine's dreams' daily life. Okay, wow. We just have another whole set here. Okay. Well, I know this is going to be a shorter one, but I think I'm going to call this one here, guys. This seems like the appropriate place to break up some of these chapters, especially if it winds up continuing to be a series of them, you know? If they're shorter, we can lump them together, but that one was a little bit longer, so I'm going to go ahead and give my voice a break. But this is interesting, though. Lots of interesting insight into Kaine's history. I'm wondering if this was in the original or if this is like a new addition to flesh out Kaine's character more. I don't know. I'm sure you guys will tell me. But until the next time, though, thank you all so much for watching. I do very much appreciate it. If you know someone that you think would enjoy this series or any of my other series, if you could shoot them a link, that'd just be swell. I'm looking forward to Route B here. It looks like there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff to check out, so I'm excited. But until the next time, I hope you all have a good night. Stay safe and healthy out there. And remember, be good to each other. Bye now.